Douglas Murray, the Center for Social Cohesion in the British Isles. Welcome to CSP TV.
Good to be with you.
Participating in a very interesting day-long conference on lawfare, as it is being used by what I call Sharia adherent Muslims to effect changes in Western societies. And my thesis is that what's coming for the United States has already begun to manifest itself in Britain. And you're a close monitor, in fact, one of the most thoughtful and articulate of monitors of this phenomenon in your country. And I wondered if you might share with an American audience, indeed a worldwide audience, but particularly an American audience, what you're witnessing and what we should be on the lookout for.
Sure. I mean, some of it, as we've been saying today, is a legal problem. A lot of it's a legal problem, but as a non-lawyer, I don't think that every problem is a legal problem. I don't think every problem has a legal solution. I mean, there are two main things we face at the moment. One is the encroaching legal fight that Islamists and their friends are putting up, which is increasing in Britain, increasing across Europe, and is coming here, and I think will increasingly come here. This is the offensive use of our laws against us. I mean, it's sort of, you know, there's the us and them problems. I mean, the problems that the Islamists cause us, and the problems which we've caused ourselves. And I mean, there are some examples. You know, for instance, the Canadian Human Rights Commissions, these kangaroo Mickey Mouse courts. If they hadn't have been set up by the Canadian government, there'd be no way that, you know, opportunistic young Islamists would be able to take advantage of it. That's an us problem. It's Canada's fault. They can remedy that. The them problem is the people taking advantage of this and using actually laws which are there for all people, but using them hostilely to shut down debate and shut down truth. The other side, and as I say from the legal bit, is the freedom of speech issue. This is now the overwhelming battleground on which the Islamists are fighting.
Seeking to circumscribe our freedom of speech, not simply exercise their own.
Absolutely. I mean, for instance, in blasphemy legislations, not just at the UN, but attempted to be instituted in Britain, Parliament voted a couple of years ago on
Define blasphemy legislation.
Blasphemy legislation that, well, effectively, it's always called blasphemy legislation, but of course it's actually legislation to protect Islam. It's legislation to protect Islam from criticism. And it's not merely criticism that's at stake. It's making any statements of truth about Islam. For instance, the blasphemy legislation that is being suggested at the UN, blasphemy legislation that has been proposed in my country, would, among other things, mean that if you said something that was true about Muhammad, Islam's prophet, if you said something that was true which a Muslim didn't like, you could be done for that blasphemy thing.
Done meaning prosecuted.
Prosecuted. And it sort of can't be stressed enough that even if it were an unsuccessful prosecution, such as some of the ones in Canada and elsewhere, even when it's unsuccessful, this is entirely frivolous legislation. And the most obvious encroachment, litigation, the most obvious encroachment into our freedoms. As I say, if the blasphemy legislations that are being proposed would, for instance, mean that if I said, well, Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl and consummated his so-called relationship with her at 9, and if I said this, or said it in more strident terms, about what I thought of people who slept with 9-year-olds, it's possible that a Muslim could say they took great offense at this. Never mind that this is a Muslim tradition. Al-Turabi writes about it, one of the earliest, most noted Persian scholars. Never mind that it's actually in the tradition. If I were to offend somebody by saying that, that might be enough. There are more serious... Enough to warrant some kind of...
Initiate some sort of proceeding against you.
Yeah.
Which at the very least would result in you having to spend enormous amounts of money trying to defend yourself against this litigation. unjustified as it may be.
Yes, and this is one of the most important things. The chilling effect of saying to people effectively that if they go into this area, they open themselves up to illegal consequences. Is profound. I've often cited a case that really hasn't had enough attention in Britain, or indeed elsewhere, which was a case a couple of years ago where two young undergraduates at the University of Cambridge published one of the Muhammad cartoons, the Danish cartoons, in their Cambridge College news sheet. You know, it goes out to about 200 undergraduates. Most people throw it away, you know. And for this, the British police called these undergraduates in for questioning. They had to hire legal representatives. The Director of Public Prosecutions in Britain decided that a crime had been committed, but that on this occasion it wasn't in the public interest to prosecute. Now, I don't know when the British public were asked if they thought that cartooning should be prosecutable, that young people should be hauled in front of courts and sent to prison for publishing cartoons of other people's profits, or anyone's profits. The idea is absurd, but that's
what you've really described here is a process whereby individuals are in fact taking their future, their lives, their livelihoods, perhaps their fortunes in their hands, doing anything that might give offense to Muslims, even if it does not in fact come down to a matter of law. There's always, I guess, in addition, the threat of violence perhaps against them as well, all of which is creating conditions in Britain that are having what effect on the public discourse and understanding of the nature of Sharia, this legal, political, military, religious code that authoritative Islam seeks to impose on us all.
Well, the first thing is that the chilling effect of the threat of violence already is in place. Just before coming here, I was doing an interview for the BBC about the convictions of 3 young men in Britain for the attempting to firebomb the house of the publisher of the novel The Jules Medina. This again had very little attention in the British or any other press, but these 3 young men went to the Gibson Square
These
publishers.
3 young men happened to be Muslim?
3 young Islamists went to the publisher's house and firebombed it. This was the publisher.
They actually did firebomb this.
They were pouring stuff through the letterbox when the police managed to get them, and it turned out the Jules Medina is the novel which Random House refused to publish, in a most unbelievably cowardly fashion last year.
Having agreed to publish it.
Having agreed to publish it, then decided it wouldn't. This publisher in London, Gibson Square, is a freedom of speech absolutist. He wanted to publish it because he recognised there was a serious problem in society if you can't, among other things, write fiction about historical events. I mean, it's obvious to most of us, but there's an important thing in this, which is that this exactly plays into what the Islamists and the Sharia you talk about want to achieve, which is not actually protecting them from religious offence alone. It is part of a much larger attempt to make everyone submit to the ideology of Islam and Islamism. And the reason why this attempt is so robust is because they recognise they cannot win the debate in the realm of free ideas. They can't win it. If somebody comes
especially in free
societies, they have no chance of winning. None at all. So what they have to do is to try to stop the free society from being free. They have to make sure that if you can't draw a cartoon, you can't write an article, you can't make a short film. You can't make a speech. All of these things have been tried in Europe in recent years. Theo van Gogh made a short film submission, and he was beheaded in Amsterdam, and Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who wrote it, was chased into hiding. Robert Redeker wrote an article in the Paris newspapers, and he was chased into hiding. The Danish cartoonists drew cartoons, and they were chased into hiding. And
you've made speeches and been denied the opportunity to make further speeches.
Sure, I mean, people have sometimes tried to stop me from speaking on the same premise, and sometimes threaten violence against me if I do. And I think we only have one response to this. We have only one possible response to this, The impossible one is that we say, okay, we will submit to what you demand of us. We'll submit to that. The only alternative then we actually have is to say, if you'll pardon the language, screw you. We're not going to submit to pretending, even pretending, that we believe these things. If you were going to find, I just put this as a thought experiment, if you were going to find the people, you always offer dialogue, you know, Tariq Ramadan at his type, these Islamist scholars, they always say we'd just like
very
a dialogue.
Very prominent and highly regarded figure in Europe.
Absolutely.
Not allowed into
Not allowed into here, but allowed
no.
into it, be given a post at Oxford University.
Yes.
But they always say to you, we just want dialogue. And you go, oh yeah? What are the terms of this dialogue? And you discover it's like playing cricket against somebody who's running up against you with the ball and then says, actually, you're not allowed to use the bat. You don't have a chance of playing the game because you're playing it on their terms.
I'm not sure that most Americans are going to understand that metaphor, but let's just say that they're changing the rules mid-game.
They're changing the rules mid-game,
Douglas,
and this matters.
We're going to have to wrap it there, I think. Thank you for both what you're doing and for a very clear enunciation of the challenge you're facing as you're trying to maintain social cohesion in a free Britain, and indeed the warning that it constitutes to the rest of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.